This is the I Read Comic Books podcast. I am your host, Mike Rappin, and with me this week for a very special minisode is Kait Lamphere.
Hi.
And Liz and Jimmy Reed.
Hello.
Thank you guys for joining us this week on the show. I'm very excited to talk to you. You guys are comic book creators. Could you tell us a little bit about yourselves?
Yeah, so we go by the artist name Cuddles and Rage, and we've been making comics for around 10 years. We started off making just hand-drawn comics on Tumblr, just as a creative output from our 9-to-5. And then somehow that grew into going to indie comic shows, and then magically grew into not only drawing comics, but then sculpting them and turning them into dioramas, which is kind of our crazy thing that we do.
Yeah, that's so. I mean, just to kick things off, when I first got an email saying, "Hey, you guys want to talk to these people about this book?" And then I saw some previews of the art, I was like, I wasn't sure if it was like very meticulously drawn to be real life or if it was photographs. I guess for folks who aren't looking at it right in front of them, could you describe a little bit of what like your art style is for when you're creating comics? Because we were here to talk about this book, Bites of Terror, which recently came out, or is it about to come out? I'm not sure.
Oh, it just came out. Yeah,
just
on March
came out.
24th.
Okay. Right. And yeah, the style of this book is really cool. But yeah, could you guys describe just a little bit of what your style is like?
Yeah, definitely. So most of our work is hand sculpted out of polymer clay. And so we sculpt our characters, we pose them in scenes, kind of like you would do stop motion animation, although we're just taking still images of those pictures. So we work with a bunch of different kinds of mixed media, really kind of whatever we can get our hands on to make the scene come to life. So you know, our materials range from dollhouse furniture that's been pre-created to finding ways to use coffee grinds. Liz goes stick hunting.
I do go stick hunting. It's amazing.
So it's a mixed media set of art that we make.
Gotcha. Yeah, and I mean, Kait and I had the privilege of being able to check this book out a little bit early, and man, it's really really cool. Like the style itself really. Like, it totally pulls you in this very, like, cutesy but terrifying way. I mean, Bites of Terror is a horror anthology, I guess, that follows an overarching story involving a handful of different characters with little like side stories about different types of food. I really really enjoyed reading through the whole thing, and it's done in this mixed media format. I thought it was such a cool way to tell a story, especially like the way that you guys I guess structured the whole thing with an overarching story. I guess what was your big inspiration for this whole book?
I think it's just our love of horror and horror anthologies in general. I mean, even though, like with Bites of Terror, it's definitely more weird than scary. It let us celebrate a genre that we grew up on and in our own voice, which, most of our comics are food related.
Yeah, I think that the number of puns in this book, I was trying to keep count, and then I couldn't stop reading and keeping count at the same time. So I just read the entire thing. But yeah, the number of puns in this book is astronomical. I'm very very happy.
Yeah, we try to strike a balance of the obvious ones and maybe the not so obvious ones. I mean, the funny thing about puns is that you can have so much fun with them, but our goal is to definitely tell a story and not have them hopefully detract from the feelings and the emotions of the characters. Because even though we're writing food and bringing them to life, like we take all of their pains and woes very seriously, because it feels like a story won't come through if you just think that you're writing one huge joke.
Yeah.
I was definitely impressed with the way that you would use food terms right in the middle of what the character was saying, and I just like breeze right past it, and then I'd be like, wait a second, that was a pun. It was very natural.
Oh, that's great.
Thank you. Yeah, we do a lot of cooking and eating here, so.
So yeah, I guess this whole story, it revolves around a bunch of different food and stuff. Did you have a favorite story or a favorite food that you put together as one of the stories?
Oh my gosh. The thing we tried to do was to make sure there was a good balance of foods. We tend to gravitate toward dessert
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
Yes, dessert or breakfast.
So that was kind of a challenge for us as we were starting out, just trying to make sure we had a good spread of foods and not every story was about a donut or a cake. Although my favorites in the book are the Unfortunate Cookie story with the fortune cookie, and I also love one that Liz did. It's the very last story in the book about the peach.
Oh, preserved. Yeah. And I think my favorite story is Potluck, and I won't say why, but I had a lot of fun sculpting that one.
Gotcha. So between I guess responsibilities in the book, who is one person doing more of the sculpting and the other person doing more of the writing, or is it a like even mix?
Well, I do most of the sculpting, but Jimmy definitely hopped in and sculpted on this one, especially with the story he mentioned, Unfortunate Cookie, because they were just like, there was a cookie funeral, which lots of cookies attended. So I was like, we're going to sculpt together on this one. But when it comes to the creation of the story ideas, that's very 50-50. And when it came to writing the stories, I wrote 5 of the stories, and then Jimmy wrote 5 of the stories and then the main through line. And then it's still very collaborative, even though we both take on the bulk of the writing, because we're going in and editing each other's stories as well. So nothing makes it through unless we both approve it.
Yeah.
Right. Very cool.
So how did you come up with the original idea for that Tumblr comic?
Oh, gosh. Well, it kind of started with the name, because the name Cuddles and Rage actually comes from us co-op gaming, where Jimmy's like very strategic and I just go in crazy lady, like, if I hit something, I'm good. I was the rage part, and I don't know why he was the Cuddles part. I guess because he put so much care into his strategy. But it also just kind of lent itself into our dark humor. And with our humor in particular, over time, it's become more of this, but we love dark humor, but we like to make sure our humor is not mean. So it just kind of fits in with the whole Cuddles and Rage idea that just kind of started on a whim.
Yeah, we love that idea of something salty and something sweet together, of combining two things that maybe don't normally mix, that when you put them together, you get something different out of it.
Gotcha.
Cool. Is that Tumblr blog still up? Can I follow it?
Yeah, it's still up. You can follow it. And then there are some comics that we don't post on our actual website that are still on Tumblr. So you can see like the dark side of Cuddles and Rage before we became a little sweeter. It was very hardcore horror at the start, but sometimes without any rhyme or reason, which I still think is funny and great.
Yeah, it was part of the process of finding our voice. I think when we started out, it was just about expressing something and trying to make our friends laugh. And as that started going, we started trying to make the stories more interesting to us, or kind of putting some heart behind it. And I think that's kind of how it evolved. Yeah.
And we're huge movie buffs. And so for us, through our film club or just through watching movies together, once we started writing our own stories, we would dissect the stories that we were watching or consuming. And I think that's helped us grow as storytellers. Hopefully you can see that when you go through the blog early, like 2008, 2009.
All right. So do you guys have any background with like being trained to sculpt or write or draw or anything? Like, what is your education background?
We both went to school for video-related things, so my concentration was in digital video.
Yeah, mine was also in digital video, but in like documentary filmmaking. That's why I loved your last episode so much. I was like, oh, another documentary I can check out. Cool. So yeah, with that background, that technical background, I think that's helped us learn a lot of different processes and softwares pretty quickly. But when it came to learning how to sculpt, I learned from a bunch of 10-year-olds on YouTube. They're yeah, definitely. And when it came to the writing process, I mean, I have this kind of bad habit of like wanting to consume books on everything before I actually do the task. So, I think we did a mixture of writing and then also just, for me personally, I consumed a lot of books on storytelling just to make sure that we keep our stories really concise and quick. I tend to get kind of bored if a story goes on for too long.
Yeah, I mean, not to to poo-poo on long stories, but that was kind of one of the things I really liked about Bites of Terror, was that each of the stories didn't get so long that I was like, okay, when are we actually going to get to the end of this? Like, they were quite literally perfect bites of story to actually keep the pace of the book moving quick enough that I read the entire thing in a sitting, and I wanted to get to the end because I was so excited to see how it was all going to twist. And I think that the pacing of that really, really helped. So, like, kudos to you guys for keeping my attention.
That's awesome.
Yeah, thank you. We definitely like to read in bed at night, so it's like, can you maybe do like a story a night sort of thing if you want to not read that long? So
yeah. One thing I found that was really interesting is looking at the comics that you guys have done, like, online digitally, and then looking at this new book. The thing that blew my mind was to see how, like, perfect you were able to get your sculptures to look like your drawn art. Like, could you guys maybe explain how my brain can understand that? Because I don't see how you could draw something and sculpt it to make it look that close, because I'm just not an artistic person. But, like, it feels like a very natural progression of your digital art into a 3D form. Was there some sort of process that you guys did to make sure that you matched up the styles, or is it just that's how you sculpt things? I don't know.
I think I guess when we're drawing something, I usually try and keep it pretty simple, so that I can easily translate it into a sculpture. And that kind of came up in a really, really interesting. Sorry for the cat meowing. But so Jimmy would write a story, and then he would put, like, I don't know, a convenience store in there, and I'd be like, I don't know how to make that. Like, I can maybe draw it. So then I guess that's where the drawing becomes really important, because you want to draw it as simple as possible, because you know the amount of time that it will take to make that. So we did encounter, like, some challenges along the ways where maybe it'd be easier to draw it than to build it, but I think we always came in the middle and found a happy medium. And the key to dioramas, which I think kind of tricks the eye into thinking that there's more going on, is just to make a variety of texture. Like, you don't want everything to feel the same. Right. I think that's what kind of helped us make it look like more was going on than what actually was.
Yeah, and our process is, we go through a number of steps. So there's a sketching phase for all these stories to try to work out what do the characters look like. And Liz and I are both heavily involved in that part of the process. We share things back and forth. And when we bring things into Story Realm, we do storyboards also sketched, and that gives us the chance to look through that and figure out, okay, how are we going to make this convenience store? How much convenience store do we need to show? These kind of things. And how many different textures are we going to add in? And it also gives us another chance to add in some of the little details and jokes that we try to squeeze into everything.
Gotcha. So one other thing that I was kind of curious about was how did you guys come to work with Quirk Books to get this book put together? And did you pitch them a story, or was there, like, a previous relationship that you guys had?
Previous relationship for sure. Our editor Rick was somebody that we've just met on the indie comics circuit for like 6 years. And when he first met us, he was like, "Oh, you should make a book with my publisher Quirk. That'd be great." And we're like, "Oh, that sounds amazing." But at the time, we had just gotten into making picture books. So I think we kind of were not really struggling, but trying to figure out where we wanted to shift next as a brand. Like, if we wanted to do more kid stuff, or if we wanted to do more like edgy adult stuff. So our next, when we saw him, we had made like 2 picture books, and then we kind of had a little powwow, and we're like, we love doing picture books, but we want to do something that's like really weird and kind of dark. Let's go pitch an idea to Rick. And Bites of Terror just seemed like the perfect idea to pitch to him, because I think right at that time, Comic-Con had just announced that Creepshow was coming back, and all these horror anthologies were coming back into the TV side of it. So I think we just got perfect timing right there. Gotcha.
Very cool.
I'm just like personally curious about how you met. Like, what's your story?
Ooh, our meet cute. Well, we met at work, as a lot of people do. And I don't know. We talked about horror conventions on our first date, and was like, I was like, you like horror and you like video games? Oh my gosh, we should get married. And that's pretty much how it went.
And now here you are with a horror anthology. It's perfect.
Yes, right. we're still doing the things we love together, which I do think helps make a healthy relationship.
Yeah,
it's very nice. It's very wholesome.
I think one of my favorite parts of this was that I opened up the book and immediately saw your table of contents, which reads like a menu.
Yeah, that was something that Jimmy and our editor Rick kind of worked on together. If you want to say more about that.
Oh yeah, and it definitely helped us kind of double check what I mentioned earlier about having a good spread of food, because when we first started roughing that idea out, there was a lot of dessert. So we used that concept to help us bring almost a beginning, middle, and an end to grouping the stories together, which in an anthology, catching that that flow was something we wanted to try to work out. And the menu concept actually helped us make sure that worked. So I was pretty happy with that, how that came together, and really what it offered to make the book better.
Yeah, I think so. And it's kind of interesting, like with the appetizer section or the starters, where is watermelon a starter? It could be.
Sure.
Let's just throw it in there.
Yeah, I had completely forgotten about the way that the stories were organized by the time I was really into the book. And then, you end the story with your desserts and it's perfect. And it was just an impressive organization decision.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, we had a lot of fun trying to map everything out.
No, go ahead.
Well, I was about to take it like way off topic, so.
Oh, okay. So I actually had one more little on topic, I guess, question for the book. For you guys said you're pretty big horror fans. Are there any horror Easter eggs in there for like other folks who are maybe a little bit more diehard? I'm not really like a big horror fan, but I really enjoyed the book because it's about food and that's not scary to me. But are there any like Easter eggs for folks out there who are like really into horror?
Oh yeah, definitely. We try to throw as many like little hidden jokes and Easter eggs in everything we make. So there are like little nods to directors, or there's definitely a major nod in Pizza Party Massacre to Slumber Party Massacre. So in everything that we create, we either try and have like a nod to horror, or even within there like a nod to food. Like I don't know if anybody's caught on yet that Goffrey and potluck, that's actually like a type of waffle that's like that I need to make. It's like supposed to be like the world's tastiest type of waffle. So when I was looking that up, I was like, oh, that feels like a name. That could be like Goffrey, whatever.
Yeah, see, I'm uncultured. I just thought that was a cool name.
Yeah. He kind of runs with that dark crowd. Yeah, it all kind of goes together.
Yeah, so you said that you worked on the indie comics scene, I guess. So do you read a lot of comics too?
Oh yeah, we do. But right now, mostly a lot on the indie side, just to kind of support some of our more independent comic shops and our friends making comics. So
totally.
Right now, before we hopped on, I was just reading some zines by Alex Pardee. That were hilarious and made me blush. I was like, ooh, that's bad. Because his humor is very twisted. And I also was just reading this one comic from, I don't know if you've heard of Atomic Books in Baltimore. That's like our famous little comic shop. But I went online whenever kind of like bookstores were asking people to, try and shop online as much as possible. And I just found this one book, which people might know about Julian Glander more than I do, but I got Julian's 3D Sweeties because it looked like a diorama comic. I try and collect diorama books as much as possible, but this little indie comic is like all 3D animated with a bunch of dark, weird humor in it. So that's currently what I'm reading.
Yeah, and right now, at this time of year, we would just have come back from MoCA in New York typically, and that's usually where we're picking up a giant bundle of indie comics, just walking around there and getting our hands on whatever we can.
Yeah, and we pretty much shop with, that looks weird, I'll buy it.
Yeah. I mean, that's the best way to go through some of those conventions. I mean, I've been to Mocha once, and I mean, I always go to like, little smaller conventions like FlameCon. I mean, which is now kind of like a bigger convention in New York, and it's always just like, oh, that looks cool. I'm just gonna buy this, and then you come home with an entire bag full of zines and other stuff. But yeah, I guess so. If right now we're kind of in a weird time, trademark, I guess. But when you guys are regularly touring, do you have any conventions that you really dig on?
Yeah, our big three, I guess, are Awesome Con here in DC, which we were able to attend the first one, which was kind of small at that point. It was just in one room, and now it's a big mega convention. That's our real local one. The Small Press Expo is one that we attend every year and show at. That one's excellent and amazing. We love the people who organize that, and they have such a great group of artists there. And Mocha is our other third one that we tend to do every year.
Gotcha. Do you have a favorite out of those three? Or is it always hard to pick?
Are they listening? I guess I would have to say Small Press Expo, because that was the very first one that we showed at. And I really like how they kind of set up their guest list. It's half lottery and half curated. So that people who just started making comics like 3 months ago or 6 months ago can have a table next to somebody who's been making comics for decades.
Right.
And I think it just creates a beautiful artistic opportunity for everybody. And it's always packed. And that's a show where I feel like you can, I mean, same thing with Mocha too, but you can really discover people and then watch their careers just take off. Like Noelle Stevenson was somebody that we got to see like right when Nimona was coming out. And now look at her, she's like She-Ra.
Right.
We got to see a lot of people like Mike Mitchell and Ollie Moss and Scott C and Dustin Harvin. So it's just a place where you get to meet your heroes and have conversations about just really anything. It doesn't even have to be comics.
Yeah, I definitely dig on like those conventions for that same reason too, mostly because like everybody at these like SPX and Mocha and all that other stuff, everyone's so approachable because it doesn't feel like there's this big huge like spotlight, I guess, on them like you get at some bigger conventions where there's like a bodyguard and a huge line that wraps around. Because there are people who are, I guess, like bigger names in the indie scene, but it never feels like that they're someone that's like a celebrity by any means. They just feel like a regular person, which is always great to just, say, hey, I really like this thing. And they're like, oh, thank you so much. And then they start crying and then you're crying and like everyone's having a good time. Like, at least that's what I've always found. Maybe that's just me. I don't
all
know.
the time. No, we've actually had some interesting experiences. We had somebody serenade us all of a sudden. We're like, oh this is what we're doing now. Very cool.
I got like with music.
Yeah, you're sketched. But I will say about like the setup though, especially with Small Press Expo, I am just forever impressed by them, because when you do have people who have lines that just wrap around the building, they strategically place them closer to an exit so that it's not blocking other artists, which I think always is kind of a not so great thing when you're showing. If the person next to you is like so popular, you're like, please, but make room for my table. I'm so tiny. But Small Press is good about knowing how to work around that.
Well, I guess I have like one last horror question for you guys. Do you have any horror movies that you recommend to people that are maybe recent, or some old classics that you guys have been recently revisiting? Is there anything that like people should absolutely check out? And if you say Midsummer, I know I need to go see it. That one I understand. But are there any movies or anything like that you guys are really digging on you want to recommend to people?
Oh, Jimmy is pulling up his Letterboxd list. So
that's perfect. No, that's great.
We track all our movies.
One that
do you have?
Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was going to say one that I've been mentioning a lot is there was a film made of Tales from the Crypt in the 1970s, and it is amazing. It's another anthology film. It has a couple of stories that are threaded together by a really great wraparound segment. I'm not sure how many people know that film exists, but it's completely worth checking out.
Yeah, we actually, I don't know if you're on Letterboxd, but we are, and I'm on there as Cuddles and Rage, but we have a whole Bites of Terror films that inspired the book. So I think that there are a lot of films here that people should see. And I guess to answer your question, so like Pieces is a wonderful film. We also have a puzzle that we're going to make it that. So people who are horror fans who are looking for puzzles right now, go to Messed Up Puzzles, and you'll find some great puzzles there. I think with the Creep, with the was it both of them Duplass brothers or just one?
I think it may have been just the one.
Just the one.
Yeah.
That's a really great, like, small, creepy, little kind of horror film that I really feel like somebody could be making right now in their house because it all takes place in one location. And then Night of the Hunter is a super classic, which unfortunately they're remaking. And I wish I could put a ban on that. I was doing a live when a friend texted me that they're remaking The Night of the Hunter. And I stopped my live. I was like, I'm sorry. This is so upsetting. I need to address this.
Then there's one more recent one I would throw in there. It recently came out on VOD. It's called Swallow.
Yeah.
It's a movie that I got to see at Fantastic Fest last year. We go to that festival every year in Austin. It is a horror film, but there's a lot more to it than that. And I think that one's definitely one people should see.
And I would say, and see, you got us started on a topic that like we'll never stop.
No, this is all great. This is, I mean, like I said, I'm not a huge horror fan, but I will take, recommendations to at least try some stuff. Maybe I can get over the fear to sit down and watch a really good film.
Well, here's a non-horror film that did inspire us, and that's a beautiful film. Is The Swimmer with Burt Lancaster. It's an older movie, but it is so good, and it just makes you kind of rethink life and people around you if you're in that mood right now.
Yeah, I'll throw one more in there just while we're on it.
No, that's fine. Go for it.
One of the things that I love are movies about people coming together and making things, and Ed Wood from Tim Burton is an all-time favorite of mine. And I don't know, there's just something about when you're making things and you're an artist who's creating a work, and people come together around you to help you make that thing. I think that movie celebrates that more than any other that I've seen.
Well, that's why you just watched American Movie over again.
Yep.
I hope you've seen that one, right? Please say yes.
You said American? I don't know what that is.
It's a
I haven't heard
documentary.
of that.
It's great. Like, out of all the choices we just told you, go skip to that one first.
This is the 1999 film, just to make sure I've got it right.
The Chris Smith?
Yeah.
It's the one. That's a pretty amazing story.
Yes. And that
Okay.
also inspire you to make, no matter what the circumstances.
I'm so excited to follow you guys on Letterboxd and see all the movies that I need to sit down and actually watch, because otherwise I'm just going to watch Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse over and over on repeat.
So good.
Yeah. 5-star film right there.
Yeah.
Right. Well, yeah, no, that's really cool. I'm glad that you I was going to ask if you had a letterbox, because I think that that's like a natural pairing of this kind of stuff. So yeah, I guess we'll make sure to plug all that stuff in the in our show notes. But Kait, did you have anything else you wanted to get to? I'm just going to keep asking them about horror films because I'm very curious. It's just something I know nothing about.
So you mentioned that you follow a lot of different creators and you meet a lot of different people. Do you have any horror comics that you recommend?
Ooh, good question. Well, none that we've read too recently.
Well, one comic that kind of I was reading somewhat recently that dips into that is Headlopper.
Oh, yes.
I like a lot. Yeah.
I've heard a lot about that.
Oh, that reminds me. Into the Woods. Have you read that?
By Emily Carroll? Is that right?
I think so, yeah. So I like the look of that one. And then you know what? Even though it's not really horror, I think it kind of lays into the spooky. But I love the Over the Garden Wall comics. Like, I feel like they just let you read them and feel like it's Halloween every day, no matter what.
The Sabrina comics have been really great. That's a series we stayed on.
Yeah, I just ordered Archie Afterlife so I could get into that one.
Yeah, Afterlife with Archie, or is it Archie Afterlife? There's both of them. There's Afterlife with Archie and then Archie Afterlife, where like so many things. The Archie comic brand is so interesting that they're willing to try all of this. I want to say like off-brand kind of stuff, right? Because when you think of Archie, it's so wholesome, and it's just like, oh, don't worry, I'm gonna knock something down and get the girl at the end of the day. But instead, it's like, no, and then we're gonna do a story about witches who summon like the devil and actually are killing people and sacrificing goats and all this other stuff. And it's all under the same umbrella brand, using the same characters. I think it's like such a bold choice for them, and it super works because I'm totally sucked into all of it now.
Yes, and I have it. Afterlife with Archie is when I'm going to start reading. But you're kind of right. Like, do they just use Sabrina though to bring in everything spooky? Because
it depends. It depends on the story, because like there's also the Jughead, the werewolf or something. He becomes like a Wendigo or something.
Oh.
And like I don't think Sabrina's involved in that at all. I think he just accidentally becomes a Wendigo.
That seems appropriate.
Yes, you do.
Yeah, that would be what Jughead does. But again, it's like, I don't know what your background is in terms of like reading Archie comics and stuff, but at the same time, even when I went into books like Afterlife with Archie, I picked up everything within the first couple of pages, knowing nothing about Archie. And then I became so interested in the characters to be like, hold on, they did this horror series on it. What else? What is this actually about? What are all these characters, or who are all these characters? And then I started reading Archie comics. Like they got me. Like the people at Archie Comics pulled me in, and now they have like a lifetime fan because they were able to really convince me that their happy-go-lucky brand can do something very different and very, very well. Plus, I mean, like the art and team on that is just unbelievable. But yeah, it's such a fun like series of books. I definitely recommend Jughead the Hunger if you have not read that yet.
Okay, yeah, I'll definitely do that. Yeah, I was surprised when I got the book. I haven't been following it that closely, but that Francavilla is the one that illustrated it. I mean, we love him. We have some original art from him too.
Oh, nice, very nice.
A treat.
That guy loves horror comics. I've seen some of the stuff he posts on Twitter. The posters that he's done are just magnificent. Of like all the various like creature features and stuff like that he's done in his style. It's so fantastic. What's the original piece that you guys have from him?
Oh, we commissioned a creature from the Black Lagoon from him, and it's awesome.
That's so cool. That's very, very cool. Well, yeah, I guess, Kait, did you have any final questions? Because otherwise I'm just going to like geek out and keep asking questions about all the cool stuff these guys have in their house, and we're going to get an audio tour about everything that they have.
I could also keep asking for media recommendations like all day. Just stay on the line. What can people do to help you guys out right now? Do you have like a web store or anything like that?
Yeah, I think definitely grabbing a copy of Bites of Terror and, putting it on your to-read list on Goodreads or writing a review and just sharing it online with people. I think that's definitely the best way to support our work right now, because we have our own Etsy store, but really for me, like I make my living selling books. So we hope that this opportunity would lead to a second one. But it's definitely different trying to promote a book during a pandemic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's available everywhere. And we kind of, as people have been asking, we're telling them to go talk to your local store because they can get it. And if you want to support your local bookstore or comic shop, that's a good way to do that too.
Yeah, I've definitely been trying to call our local stores and make sure that they have it, and then push people there, just to kind of keep those guys going too. Because it is right now, I think it's an interesting time just to see how the community is really coming together. And one of our comic stores that we go to is Third Eye Comics, and they'll even deliver it in their van to your door.
That's so cool.
Yeah, they've really gotten like the personal shopper experience down.
We also, if you just want to follow us or see more from us, Instagram's our main platform, and we post comics and videos there all the time. And
we're somehow growing bigger on TikTok, which I always feel like people are like, TikTok. I'm like, I don't know, it just kind of happened. We have this one video called Corn Dog Drama that we actually made for Fantastic Fest that all of a sudden it got 2 million views. And whoa. I know, right? And so I keep posting videos to TikTok, but it's all the people are like, "Where's Corn Dog Drama episode 2? Where's Corn?" And then when I do lives on there, they're like, "Where's Corn Dog Drama?" One person specifically, it made me laugh so hard. She's like, "It's been 8 videos since you posted your last Corn Dog Drama."
See, but if you give the people exactly what they want, they're gonna get spoiled. So you got to make them wait, right?
Yeah,
that's the idea.
Exactly. Although I can relate to the 8 videos and counting. I'm like, I'm on it. Okay, we're just trying to work things out.
Yeah. Well, that's cool. So yeah, we'll make sure to get all that stuff. We'll put it in the show notes so you guys can go follow them. But yeah, this has been fantastic. I mean, thank you guys so much for your time today. I really love the book. I think it was a really fun read. So thank you so much for getting a copy to me. It's a very nice physical book to sit on your shelf. So if you guys get a chance, make sure to go buy a physical copy from your local shop, as they said. But yeah, I guess so. If people can find you on the internet, you guys are all Cuddles and Rage on all the various social media platforms?
Yes, we've been very fortunate to get that name right away. We're like, it's a new platform, I'm getting the name.
Cool. Well, yeah, then we will make sure that's all in the show notes. As for us, you can follow us on Twitter. I am at Mike Rappin, and Kait is at Kait L. Fear. You can follow the show at IRCB Podcast, where I try to post regularly. I take photos of every single book that I have in my house, because that's all that I have, but I want to make our Instagram look cool, so I try to do that.
The show and our many subscriber-only episodes are powered by fans like you on Patreon. Join now at patreon.com/IRCB podcast. And if you haven't already, please rate and review our show 5 stars on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and your favorite podcatcher.
You can join us on Discord at ircbpodcast.com/Discord. And don't forget, tell a friend or a foe even about this show. Infinity Shred is the best band in the universe. They do all of our music. Xander is a high wizard, a great GM, and just a great friend. He also edits the show. I want to say thank you to Liz and Jimmy for being on the show. Thank you to Kait for being here as always, and thank you to everyone out there who listens. Until next time, be safe, wash your hands, comics are good, and so are you.